Hey everybody, today I'm going to be reviewing The Apprentice. This was directed by Ali Avasi. This film, as you might imagine, was tough to get off the ground and tough to distribute. It's been in development for several years, but finally they were able to release it. Just not with any of the controversy or the marketing fanfare that I'm sure they wish could have accompanied it. But again, despite the compromises, they did it. They got it out, and by no coincidence, right before the election. This movie is a villain origin story. It's kind of like a Frankenstein monster fable that is like mixed with a little bit of exploitation influence, mixed with maybe some Scorsese influence, definitely some Wall Street influence. But this is a formula that Hollywood has latched itself onto nearly since the beginning. The rise to fame, which creates the monster in the very traditional Charles Foster Kane sense. Obviously, Donald Trump has brought up Citizen Kane many times. He considers it, well, he says he considers it his favorite film. And you do see a poster of Citizen Kane does make its way into the film, I think in his apartment, maybe in the first act. And the thing about this particular formula is that you could make it about any, major figure, major elite person. But naturally, Trump is going to be the easy target, mainly for the controversy, but also for just like the sensationalism, the entertainment aspect. So when I sit here and I think, okay, if you're going to make a Trump origin story, a biopic, it's like, you have to be willing to be bold, because that is risky from a career standpoint. But just from an artistic standpoint, I feel like you need to make a film that is worthy of this type of personality, this type of star power. But unfortunately, the movie feels more like a whimper than any grand statement about Donald Trump. It feels more like a made-for-TV movie, just without any real balls. We hit all the natural biopic beats, as I said at the beginning, but we do so with this distance and this artificiality that I think does not do the subject any favors. Feels like we're watching another dangers of capitalism tale, just with the name Donald Trump attached to it. The pacing is such that there's little traction to be had. It feels like there's not enough space and time to carve out meaningful motivations, just complexity. The key to me in a good origin story like this is being able to get into the mind of the antihero and learning how their mind works, learning to humanize him or her. And I know that that's kind of a selling point for the film so far as the director is concerned. He talks about, no, this is not meant to tell you who to vote for. This is meant more to humanize the man, and that this is more about what led him to become the persona that we all know so well. And while I can appreciate the sentiment so far as what he's saying, I also don't buy that. I think there is an attempt to an extent to make Donald Trump a little bit more human and a little bit more complex. And yes, there are some strong moments in the film, strong scenes that kind of give you a fascinating look into things. But I'll be honest, I think the real humanizing did not come from the director or the writer. It came from the two central performances, Jeremy Strong and Sebastian Stan. This is a film that takes place in the 1970s and 80s, and we see Trump as like a green, young, very eager guy who's trying to break through in the real estate game, and he meets lawyer Harry Cohn. Roy takes a liking to Trump, and they become close, and this movie is really about their relationship, how it forms and fizzles. I think Stan is fantastic as Trump, and that is such a demanding role to play, because just think about, to peel the layers away of this caricature that he has created over these years, but also just all of the layers that the media has written about him, to peel all of that back and somehow find the person in there. For this not to come off like some cheap SNL skit, I think is pretty remarkable. And the fact that he's working kind of more within the mind of Trump and trying to find those subtleties. It's a real acting performance. I found myself sitting there going, oh my God, that's right, Trump does do that. But it's like I didn't even think about it. So for him to add just those little things like that, I think is amazing. Just like the way he perches his lips, the way he uses his lips. He felt like somebody who was approaching something more from the inside and then going to the outside, whereas everything else felt more opposite. And I don't think, again, that was the right move. And the same goes for Jeremy Strong, as I said, who does, I think, an even stronger performance. There is something to Cohn with his charisma, but also that brazen kind of off-colored humor, and you do see flashes of that in the first act. But there's also something about the physicality with Jeremy Strong. There's something, like it's a brute kind of energy, but there's that long face and kind of that long way of speaking with kind of the dead eyes. And somewhere in there, it's like he finds a little bit of frailty, a little bit of vulnerability. But, again, we have to remember this is a character who, makes it a point to never show emotion or never show weakness in public. A very difficult task, but it's the specificity in the performance that I think is so wonderful. And because so many of the supporting players and a lot of the side stories in here don't really land, it becomes so much about this relationship, again, between the mentor and the protege. I would have liked to see so much more of that, but maybe where the writing is more sophisticated, less on the nose, because this movie, It is not subtle. There is a montage in the film set to Boogeyman, and at some point in the montage, you see Ivana and Trump having sex, and literally that's where the lyrics say, "I'm your boogeyman, turn me on." You know, there's just a lot of projected artificiality where you're not getting that emotional bite. And I think, again, if you had strong writing, you can see the facets in there, because I think the strongest points of this movie are when the characters are handling business deals, where you see that shark mentality, their kind of the manipulation and the motivation, understanding the strategy, understanding why Donald Trump sees Cohn as such a fixture. And it's like, I would have wanted to get more into that. So that way, the third act is way more emotionally impactful. I think what the film fails to understand about the central character and just Donald Trump fundamentally is that it's not necessarily the way that he embraces that crooked businessman persona, but that he will reveal to all of those who are in denial that you are just as crooked as he is. And so that is the key. And it's like, I needed to see so much more of that in the way that he conducts himself. Because of all of that, the film just feels flat. It feels like soda that has been left out too long. There's no strong defining point of view, as I said before, other than look what happens when you get too powerful. Look what he has become. And it's like, okay, yeah, we've seen that before. It's boring. As I was watching the film, I couldn't help but think the whole time what this film could have been if we had a very strong film director at the helm. Because again, you have fantastic actors, lukewarm material. But this movie is not without craft. Actually, I think the art direction in this is pretty good. And I think there's a conscious choice to create a dynamic world that Donald Trump sees and that he's a part of. But it's almost as if there's like a hesitance to take this film where it really needs to go. And because of that, the results are tepid. And I'm struggling to understand why this film is coming out at this point. I struggle to know who this film is for, because I don't think it's a bold enough statement to really resonate with the left, but obviously I don't think the appeal is going to be there for maybe the right so far as that villain origin story is concerned and as pointed as it is. So I'm just kind of baffled by it. I'm not mad that it exists. I just feel like it's one of those movies that's destined to always exist kind of in the margins. I don't know if I would recommend this in any meaningful way unless you're just curious on a basic level. And, if you want to see very strong performances by Jeremy Strong, Sebastian Stan as Donald Trump, maybe it's worth your time, but just don't expect Shakespeare here. But yeah, that is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits and I sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are great. Guys, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to all the new members. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.